Hello YouTube, Yolanda Sidney here to talk to you a little bit about my struggle with lupus and all of its debilitating symptoms. Starting in about October 2013, I started to experience swelling in my right hand. I thought it was odd, and it was on a Sunday. So on Monday, the other hand started to have some swelling, just a few of my fingers. I called the doctor, I made an appointment, of course. The appointment was going to be in a couple of days. Before I could even get to the appointment, my other joints started to hurt, like my knees. I was having problems walking, standing up quickly out of a chair or sitting down. It was just a really interesting process. I get to the doctor a couple of days later, tell them what's happening. He says to me, okay, well, I think you might have some type of arthritis, but I'm not sure. It could just be a virus. So I'm going to give you some antibiotics, and you're going to take those for about 6 days. If this doesn't work, you're probably going to start to experience more pain and more discomfort, and we'll have more tests run if that happens. Sure enough, on like the 6th or 7th day, again, I felt really sick, probably because I was taking something that I didn't need to take because I didn't have a virus. And it became worse. Then my right foot started to hurt. Then shortly after that, my left foot started to hurt. And between October and February of the following year, I went to so many different doctors trying to get an answer as to what was wrong with me. They all suspected that I had rheumatoid arthritis, or RA, or lupus. And I was tested, I promise you, at least 4 times. I tested negative for those things. Well, the medication that you need to take, whether you have RA or lupus, is pretty strong medication involving steroids. So unless they know for sure that you have those diseases, they won't prescribe anything to you. Well, it's becoming really bad. I'm still trying to go to work. I feel like I'm going from someone who's in their 40s to someone in their 80s very quickly, with no idea of what's wrong and no idea what medication to take for the pain that I was experiencing in my joints and the discomfort that I started to just feel on a daily basis. So eventually it got so bad that even when my little daughter, who at the time was probably 2.5, would just hold my hand, hold my fingers, it would hurt. I would feel like I could just jump on the ceiling and just claw because it was so painful. So I knew I had a problem. I just didn't know what. Fortunately and unfortunately, in February of 2014, I got so sick, so disoriented. I felt so foggy. My breathing was so laborious that I had to go to the ER. I remember calling my mom that day and saying, Mom, I'm going to call my primary care physician, but if they can't see me today, we need to go to ER. I called them and they called me back and said, we can't see you until about 4 o'clock today. It was about 8:30 in the morning, and I just felt like we can't wait till then. We have to go. So I called my mom and said, come and get me, and we go to the ER. They said that my oxygen level in my blood was so low that they put me on oxygen and said, we're going to admit you because we need to find out what's wrong. And the ER doctor said, I think you have an autoimmune disease. He didn't say which one. So I was there for 14 days in total and found out that I, in fact, had lupus. I finally tested positive. That was probably the 5th time I had been tested through that process. And it was a relief to know what it was, that I could finally be treated for it, and released to go home after 14 days. Well, during that process, so now it's March of 2014, during that process, I am still, I'm getting better. I'm using oxygen at home. I have an oxygen machine, oxygen tanks at home, and I was getting better, but not having any energy to do anything for myself. I couldn't do simple things like clean for myself, cook for myself, do the laundry, things that I would normally do for the family. I could not do. And some things I would normally do for myself, just cleaning my rooms, things we take for granted. I couldn't bend my hands and fingers like this. I had to do things very slowly. So if this was painful for you to do, this is something you take for granted, this action. Imagine your whole body, things that you normally do, you can't do for yourself because it kind of hurts. So someone has to do things for you all the time. So in my mind, I'm like, well, I'm getting better, right? Sort of, but I have no energy, and and mentally I kind of feel a little foggy still. Even when I'm using oxygen. So I'm forcing myself, basically. I'm fighting. I'm like, God, I know what kind of disease this is. If you stay still, you'll go out. So you have to make sure that you keep active. So I would go on walks with my husband and my children, even with the oxygen machine. Sometimes they would carry it, and then after a couple of days of walking, I got strong enough that I could carry the machine myself in like a little backpack. And I wanted more. If that was the extent of how my life was going to be after, finding out I had lupus, I wanted more. Sure enough, one of my sons who was on the basketball team, he was getting Kangen water from school. He started bringing it home to me and telling me all about this presentation he saw. And he said, and Mom, I heard them say something about it'll help you with inflammation. And you always talk about being inflamed, that your joints hurt, they're inflamed. So I said, my mom will drink this water. So I said, you know what, son, it can't hurt. And sure enough, when I drank it, I noticed right away that it tastes different. It was sweeter. And I'm like, who can taste water? Water tastes like nothing, but this tastes really good to me. He was bringing it home. He was bringing me like a gallon every other day. And I wanted more water. And I started noticing that I had a little bit more energy. So I said, I want to talk to whoever it is that's doing this at your school. And it was going to be a presentation. So my husband and I went and heard the presentation. We couldn't stay for the whole thing. So we left right before they did a major thing in the presentation. So I talked with Arnold Donato, and he was able to come over to our home during spring break of this year in March. And then we were able to hear the full presentation. Immediately, before he could even finish, I knew I wanted my own machine now. I'm tired of just getting water from the machine that he had at the school. I wanted my own machine. And I wanted it not just for me, but for my kids too, for my family, my mother-in-law who lives here, who's almost 80 years old soon. I wanted all of us to have the benefits of having more energy. I also started noticing, again, my machine came and it was installed by April 1st. Every week, I just decided I was gonna see if I had any weight loss. I was losing 1.5 pounds. Next week I try again. I lost 2 more pounds. I said, whoa, this is amazing. The only thing I changed was the water. I was already eating pretty healthy, juicing and all the rest. So the only difference was I was drinking Kangen water. So I wanted to make sure that I got this from my family and that I tell every family member and friend that I know. And I know a lot of folks who are dealing with autoimmune diseases, diabetes, if you have thyroid disease, all these things are autoimmune diseases, not just lupus. People hear lupus and think it's really big, but there are other things they don't even think about. And so I wanted to share this with people. I'm sharing them the gift of having a better life, having less inflammation, less pain, more energy, and a bonus for all the women, weight loss as well. So I encourage you, if you're interested in having a better quality of life, give me a call.